33. Let's stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening to everyone who is joining us tonight for this select board meeting. I am told that while we are broadcasting on the cable signal may be a little weak. We do understand that we are able to be heard, but we just wanted to let you know if you are experiencing a little bit of problems with the visuals, that is what we know. We're having some technical difficulties. We are, in fact, on Zoom, and we are getting a good recording on Zoom as well. So we just wanted to let folks know the situation. We are going to move into our agenda. I want to do the first two items first, and then we will, I'll ask the board if it's possible to go and just to get to our folks who are visiting. I'd like to talk about the minutes, the approval of the select board minutes of September 20th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Sean to accept the minutes from September 20th, 2021. Is there any discussion? Very well. All in favor? Thank you very much. Now we come to our discussion of warrants, item 22040, warrants 13 through 16, and I believe this ushers in the Catherine era.
But first we start with the Ralph Former era.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so a little crossover. Understood.
As observed.
Yes, go ahead, Ralph.
So let's see. Warrant 13 is vendors, 37,603.22. Highlights would be fees to KV cog for their services for the comprehensive plan exercise, and 2 health insurance payments of some merit or note. Workman's comp 3,479.10, and then health 8,123.28. And payroll number 14, 15,776.33 in aggregate, 53,379.55, and I would move acceptance of the amount.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept warrant 13. And I'm just trying to find out
14.
here. And 14, right, exactly, right. In the amount, now there's no total here.
It's 53,379.55.
Okay, thank you very much. 53,370. Oh, there we go. That's what I want. 53,379.55. I was scrolling wildly. Is there any discussion? Very well. All in favor? Thank you very much. Now we move on to the next ones. Yes, 15 and 16.
15 and 16. So warrant
Happy
15.
second quarter.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been almost every day. Warrant 15 is in the amount of $671,920.45 for typical expenses, and warrant 16 is for payroll in the amount of $16,559.35. That covers 2 weeks. Highlights from this warrant would be, I just had them here, $25,451 was the second payment to Casco Bay Advisors for our broadband pole inventory, which is completed, and we've received all the data and the strand map and the pole inventory, and it's really cool information. And it, anyway. Dave's Appliance, $4,519 was a deposit on the heat pump for the upstairs here. I'll let Eric discuss why we're getting it just upstairs now. The Kennebec County Treasurer was $319,743.02. That is our bill for the year for county services, which is primarily the sheriff and the county jail. And we had $1691.57 for repairs on the town pickup truck, $288,912.31 to the school district, And that would be the big ones.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
I would make a motion to approve. Sure. Warrants 15 and 16 in the total of $688,479.80.
So seconded. What happened to the town pickup truck?
Oh, that'd be for the dump body. We had to replace some, there was some, the hubs, I guess, had to be replaced. Don't know why, but that was an issue. We also had some electronics issues, and there was apparently a leaky gasket on one of the doors. And so they had to replace that because water was getting in and causing things to short out, and the truck would actually not work because of this issue. So it was, we had to have the window replaced along with the gasket. So it was unexpected, but
I think it included the commercial inspection also.
it also included the commercial inspection. So that's one reason why they found the hubs that had to be worked on. So this is some of the most significant repair we've had to date, and hopefully it's a one-off, but we'll see. Not anymore. No, we've had that vehicle for almost
We've had it too long.
4 years probably now.
No, it's not the new red one.
5 years.
It's the
No,
dump-
no, this
yeah.
is the old dump body that
Yeah.
we, it's not
amazing
old, but it's 5 years old at least, which is still very new, but not under warranty.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the warrants 15 and 16 in the amount of $688,479.80. Is there any other discussion? Very well. All in favor? Thank you very much. I would like to ask the board, if possible, if we could move up and do our appointments, especially since they are here, the folks who are here. Is everyone okay with that? Very well. Then what I'd like to do is I would like to skip to item 22043, the appointment of Amy Terrion to the Recreation Board. You can find that in your packet. I'll give everybody a moment to scroll. Amy, if you would like to go to the podium, just introduce yourself. And
Do you know what page we're on?
I'm getting ready to tell you. It is on page,
I think I have.
look around 38, right around in there.
Yeah, my apologies for the packet this time.
36, yeah, page 36,
My fault
Carol.
the packet's so long.
We know. All right, very well. Amy, thank you very much. If you want to introduce yourself so everyone can hear, and we'll just go through this.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Terrion. I just moved to Readfield a few years ago. And I'm here obviously for the rec committee positions that are available.
Excellent. You guys have any questions, anything at all?
Oh, well, I read your application. It sure sounds like you have enough kids that you're going to be involved in the rec program.
For
so-
many years to come, Amy.
For a
Yes.
long time.
I feel like we take up half of most of the athletic teams.
Yeah.
I actually just left soccer practice.
Of course you did, yeah.
I'm coaching and doing that and just trying to get involved in the community.
Good.
I grew up involved in a lot of extracurricular activities myself, and I just think that, community is very important, and I just want to be a part of it.
Good. We appreciate you filling this out, volunteering. And for those of you watching at home, always check the website. There are always some places on town boards for you to volunteer as well. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Amy Terrion to the rec board for a position beginning tonight and ending on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the appointment of Amy Terrion to the Rec Association. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much, Amy. We
Thank
appreciate it. Yes,
Okay,
indeed.
were you voting or
years to
discussing?
come.
You were
Yeah.
voting.
Yeah, another one.
And
Thank you very
don't
much.
have to stay
Yes.
if you have things you need to go and do. That's why we're doing
Like
this.
That's
four
right.
children.
Yeah, like 4 children. Exactly right. Makes total sense.
Yes.
Thank you. Unless you need a sleep aid.
Yeah. So we move now to, and I'll tell you this as well. It is item 22044, and this is the appointment of Alana Batchelder to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Did I say that right, Alana? Okay. Would you like to go to the podium there, and we'll just do the same process for you as well. You are going to be on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, but there's something very special. You're on the Honor Board at Kents Hill. You want to
Yes,
tell us
sir.
your name, a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my name's Alana Batchelder. I'm a senior at Kent Hill School, and I'm a part of the Honor Board, which is a process where 5 or 6 kids are picked to determine the outcomes of situations that happen at school. And so I'm looking to be a student representative of this committee and bring my voice to the table.
Excellent. Questions?
No, thank you for stepping up. It'll be wonderful to have someone of your age group and
Yeah.
your knowledge group, which is different than, I will tell you, everyone else on the committee.
Everyone else in this room?
Yes. Go ahead, Eric.
I just want to say thank you again for volunteering for this, and I just want to let the board know that this was kind of an outflow of involving Kent Hill
Chris.
School and Chris Cheney, who is the headmaster there, and we've talked to a lot of schools in the area about student liaisons and student representation on some of our boards and committees. And this is the first time we've had somebody step forward and have some really good follow through. So I want to thank Chris and I want to thank Alana for volunteering.
Go right ahead, Ralph.
Alana, when do you graduate?
In May, sir.
With, yeah, keep your parents' fingers crossed. So this process is going to go on past your graduation. Do you think you might be a liaison to recruit another student to pick up where you've left off? Because that will be important for continuity. And if you guys are willing to do it, we'd love to have the next Alana in place before you leave.
Oh yeah, easy enough. I know plenty of people at my school who'd be willing to step
Great.
on.
Awesome.
Great.
Now, are you a Readfield resident, do I understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So are you a day student at Kent Hill?
Yes, ma'am.
So you might not be leaving right away in
Correct.
June or May.
Correct.
So, aha. So yes, I was on the same wavelength, so.
Well, I would entertain a motion for this appointment.
Make a motion to appoint Alana Bachelor to Commerce Bay Committee.
A second.
Barry?
Time period?
Well, this is interesting. It says 10/18/2022 through 6/30/2022.
And that's not right.
And that's
Why
not
don't we
right.
just say until she resigns?
That's right. Until 6/30/2022, I think is what we'll go with. All
But it's
right.
from tonight, not a year from now.
Not a year. from now.
You
It's
can't
all right.
start after it
Just
ends.
so many twos and zeros.
Yeah, you can hold it up after the fact, say, look what I did.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Carol seconded.
Carol seconded. Then is there any further discussion about this appointment? Again, ending on 6/30/2022. All in favor? Thank you very much. Alana, you're all
Thank
set.
you.
We appreciate it. And as the same way, you can also step out if you would like. I wonder if we would be able to talk about item 22046 as well. Eric, would that be appropriate to?
Absolutely, to
All right.
wrap it up. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. If you guys don't mind, we'll get right to you, okay? Excellent. In your packet, this falls under the automobile graveyard renewal permit area, and I can get that question
Anyone
for
gets to
you.
a page number, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, I know, right? Here we go. I think it is. There we go.
Way past it.
All right. There's 100 pages.
It's actually 151.
Yes, okay.
But who's counting?
I thought there were 190.
Oh, maybe there are.
Sorry, fellas.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome. I only,
It's right after
there's only
the
like
canvas.
60 of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
your
it's-
fingerprints are all over this.
Yeah, it's 190. That's right. It says at the
Okay,
top.
it's on page 90.
Page 90. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you, Lord. Okay, we got it. Here we go. Oh, it's a full slate. Gotcha. All right. Chip, you're here too. That's wonderful. This is for the item on the agenda, which is 22046. This is to consider the automobile graveyard permit renewal applications. We're going to do these all together. But Chip, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure, this is my first shot at this. and,
Absolutely.
hope I
Should we have
got it right.
Yeah.
Um,
Chip, will you do me a favor? Can you go to the mic for us?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Preempted you, Bill.
This is good.
How's that good?
It's deep and resonant.
There
Thank you,
you
Chip.
go.
Yes, absolutely.
So in September, I sent out the notice to the 3 yards that are currently in business here in town. The Edgcombs, The Cyrus Whitcomb, who won't be here tonight, and Antique Auto, that's Cyrus. Who's the third one? Help me out.
Lucas.
Lucas, okay, yeah. Sent it out. They all came in on time with their $100 check, and we got together in the next 2 weeks. I visited each yard with a checklist, and each yard came out with the checklist all in the good. I was asked by the town manager to check on 4 other sites that there had been talk about, I guess, at meetings. They included Lee Mank, Steve Woodsum, Zach Hatch, and Alfred Parks. I visited them. I talked to most of them. Lee runs a garage, which he's been licensed to. He has a few cars out there, but he don't want them around. He wants to get them out. So he fixes them, gets them out, and hopefully, everybody will be pleased. Most of his stuff's out and back, out of sight, out of mind. So Lee's good. Woodsum, Great Northern Motor Works. Legally, it's a restoration garage. There's issues there. I will keep my eye on it and follow up if necessary. Zach Hatch had a couple real trashers out in front of his place for a few weeks, and I was going to stop by there before Eric told me. But I stopped by there. He wasn't there. I left a card. That night he called me. I explained to him that, you got to clean this up or apply for a graveyard. He did not want to do that. And the stuff was gone the next day. So that's the way I like to work. I don't like to threaten. I like to see if we get cooperation first, and hopefully that works out. We'll keep an eye on him. And then finally, Alfred Parks, which again, he's one of these people that are out of sight, out of mind. I believe that eventually I will have to, maybe have a little come to Jesus with him. But right now it seems to be okay. The vehicles are limited. He's claiming they're in and out. I've got a mental inventory of all these. So those 4 I would take off my checklist for now, but I will be following up on all of them. The 3 places that I did send out the applications and visited all came through with flying colors. They're doing their job. They're emptying their liquids. They're getting rid of their mercury. They're reusing their oils for heat. All good things. And I'm really impressed with especially these guys. These are real class operation here. They're all hurting. They're all hurting because they don't have, the customers they did before. They're doing a job we need, getting the junkers out, or, smaller ones out. And I'm very glad to work with them. It was definitely a partnership with each of them. So I'd suggest that you approve for another year their graveyards.
Sounds good. Any discussion, any questions about this? Thank you, Chip, for your report. For your first time, you did a great job.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Ralph. Can't
Well,
imagine not.
it's probably a sidebar conversation versus the approvals for the existing operations that you're recommending that we recertify. But I'd like to hear more about how this tire reclamation process might work and how the town could maybe facilitate helping people get rid of those things.
Okay, no, that was this item I put in the report is just a suggestion to consider.
Yeah.
But do you want?
Oh, no, I just think I think that's a conversation we can have about in terms of also recycling just in general. So I wondered if that would be,
Well,
if you want to
in
speak to
terms
that,
of these
Chip.
guys, they have hundreds of tires. These guys are real smart. They can get rid of, would you say 6 or 8? When they have the cars crushed, they'll take those in there. But some of the, yards aren't up to these guys' standards. But also around town, I have a problem in Wayne with it and everything. I think that it'll be real smart if we came up with a way to get, a reclaimer in here or just have a get rid of your tires day or something. Everybody complains about them. They're all over the place, and everybody's excuse is it's too darn expensive to, get rid of them. So I think it would be great ecologically. I think it'd be great politically, and I think I'd really like to see it at some point if you'd like to discuss it.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that suggestion, and I thought it was a really nice thing to hear. Would you like to go ahead? Anything else,
No,
Ralph?
I just think that perhaps that's something we ought to put on. our
Absolutely.
list because it's a problem that's not going to go away.
Well, a select board goal this year is to find different efficiencies, ways to be more efficient. And I think that's certainly one of them. Eric?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic of discussion for the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee.
and I'd love to help out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chip. I would entertain a motion to approve the automobile graveyard permitting for the 3 operations that are listed in the packet.
I'll make a motion to approve Ken's Dragon Auto, Antique Auto Owners, and Lucas Auto Parts and Salvage for the applications as presented in our packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the automobile graveyard permits for Ken's Dragon, Antique Auto, and Lucas Auto Parts and Salvage. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much, Chip. We appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, as always.
Thank
A
you,
pleasure.
guys.
Good to hear about the continuation of your good operation. Absolutely. All right. Now, we will go back and hop onto our agenda as it is listed. It is now time for Select Board communications. We have 5 minutes listed. If there's anyone on the Select Board that would like to address the public. I just want to say that the trunk or treat is happening. It's going to be on the 30th of October. It is being done by the Rec Committee, and it should be pretty great. There's going to be Hocus Pocus. There's going to be a movie down at the ball field or fairground. So if you want more information, there's stuff on the website. We're putting it on Facebook, but it's another great opportunity. And I just want to say thanks to Chris Salmons, former board member who helped get that started. I know she's tickled that we're continuing to do it. Ralph?
How are we doing on donations for trunk or treat?
Always need more candy.
Sure.
Always need more candy.
We need more?
Always need more candy.
All right.
Okay, but let's let Eric, how much have we gotten so far?
Well, I don't know how many trunks we have. I do know that we have probably 20 pounds in the town office has been brought in, maybe 30. But I mean, last time we went through hundreds of pounds of candy.
So we can use more.
We can
Bring us
always
your
use
candy.
more.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about, people. Bring us your candy for the trunk or treat.
Drop
Excellent.
off is here at the town hall.
Drop off is here at the town hall.
Although we also, encourage people to sign up for a trunk.
Yeah, bring your own trunk.
And all that. So-
I know my friend John Raylo, who is a Mount Vernon resident, but also a Readfield property owner, is doing some work there as well to get some more candy donated and to bring his antique cars up, because that's pretty cool.
Smaller trunks.
Yes, exactly right. Anyone else for Select Board Communications?
Do you have the times on that?
I think it was 5 to
Yep.
6 or 4:30 to 6.
Yeah, it's
Trick or treat is the trunk or treat, and then the movie is after that.
yeah, it'll be dark by then.
Sundown?
It's on the website.
It is on the website, yes. Yep.
And now I'd like to move to town staff reports. We have 5 minutes for this, Eric, if you'd like to go ahead. This is treasurer's report and town manager's report.
All right,
tonight.
I'll be quick. So check rec, this is for the month of September. Check reconciliation was completed through the end of the month. Everything looked good. We did have some additional activity, but everything checks out. Every once in a while, we have additional warrants and journals that get posted to adjust and correct for things. So we had a few of those, but everything's looking good. With respect to the audit, I guess one more note on the check rec is that we do have another high balance. Every once in a while, we see that we come up with a balance that's higher than normal. And we have been increasing our checking account balance over the past several years. It's not a bad thing, but the board should be aware of that, because when it comes to budget season, it does affect how much we have in the general fund to help offset taxes or pay for special projects. So we're continuing to do well in that area. We do have an audit proposal, or actually 1.5 to consider tonight. We've been working on that for a couple months, and we did have proposals due at the end of September. Bonding, we have completed that process. The interest rate came through at 1.91% for a 20-year period. So that's a good rate for us. And
great rate.
well, the 5-year was 0.88. Again, term makes a difference. The longer you borrow, the higher the rate. But the Maine Bond Bank is exceptional when it comes to delivering those rates for us. So we will have that $395,000 for fire station, library, and road work coming through this month, if everything goes the way it should, which it has so far. And then retirement plan, we are in the final stages of getting that as well, the implementation phase. We have a meeting scheduled this Thursday with employees to go over with our financial advisor what they have for options for investing. And this will get us on track to be compliant with federal regulations and also give us the opportunity to start on the new schedule of investment. And withholding for this new program will start likely with the next pay period in November. So month of September comments, we should be about 25% expended for the year to date. There are a few things that showed up. Revenue sharing is up for the month and for the year to date as expected. One thing we have seen is that transfer station fees revenue is down, but even though we're about on par for our expenses and revenues otherwise for the year as budgeted, part of the reason for that, I believe, is that folks have hit a wall when it comes to the cost of materials and demo projects, and people have hit a wall when it comes to free time. So the golden days of COVID are over. You can no longer get a 2x4 for $1.50 and have 4 days to put it in. Things have changed. Now we have skyrocketing prices and people have to work again. So we're seeing less stuff come into the transfer station. And I have a typo here later down, but in any event, that's transfer station. General government expenditures are up for the month, but that's likely a result of insurance and software payments. They're higher for the year, but at a much more reasonable level. And then expenditures are down for the month and year to date for net. So I guess I was talking about administration earlier for general government, but overall townwide, we're down. That's mostly a result of lower levels of capital expenditures and roadwork. That will change in the spring when we see additional projects starting to take place. So that's where we are for the month of September. I'm happy to take any questions on that before I move on to my town manager's report.
Ralph, will you recognize Ralph?
Oh, yes, Ralph, go, baby. Sorry, I didn't know.
I'm just curious as to what was driving the positive, the more positive balance in the checking account.
Well, part of it is we've had more revenue sharing. Part of it is that we have sometimes have taxes coming in 1 month to the next, and a few things have kind of come together. But we also have grant money coming in. We received earlier this fiscal year $20,000 in grant funds for state the composting program. A lot of little things like that I think have been adding up. And part of it too is that every year when we budget what is going to be available at the end of the year, we do that budgeting in January, and we don't know what's actually there until, if we're lucky, October, November, December of the next year when we have our audit done. But it does show up in the checking accounts. And so we always budget conservatively, and we're seeing that we're continuing to have the right direction on that. We might be at a point pretty soon here where we're too right and we have too much of a balance, but that's a discussion for the budget process.
So we're not segregating revenue streams. Basically, this is an aggregate number that goes into the checking account. It's not just budgeted revenues from predictable revenue streams. It's grants, it's everything.
This is actual cash on hand,
this is
everything
the holding
together.
account.
Yep, that's
Okay,
right. Yeah,
gotcha.
including our reserve balances, which
Right.
we have been actively trying to build. So
Right.
one of the things we have to do analytically is balance that out.
We need those revenues to offset expenses in out budget years to keep the mill rate.
Exactly, like the $500,000 in paving we have coming up in a couple of years. So, yeah.
Eric, I can't seem to find your town manager's report.
So it's an oral report this time around.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I just got a couple really important points. As Catherine noted, we are going to have the installation done here for the heat pumps on the second floor. Part of the reason for just doing the second floor is that it's going to be $15,000 just for that. And the first floor is a lot more complicated and a lot more involved. It can and will and should happen at some point. But that one really does deserve an RFP process in my view, because we'll be replacing a 25 to 30-year-old central air that covers part of the first floor, but not all of it, hopefully with a system that may or may not involve one or more heat pumps that covers the entire second floor. So we can have heat and AC universally.
Yeah.
And it's okay when you have heat pumps like this, it's actually more efficient to have 2 or 3, depending on how many floors and how many rooms and all of that. So that is still an intent, but we're going to have to be more deliberate about it. Also, Dave said they could do this one easy peasy, no problem by the end of this month. So, and we're on track for that. We've got our stuff into the efficiency main for a $1,000 rebate. And so everything is looking good. The electrical work is going to be happening in the next couple of days, actually, and then the install either Thursday or sometime next week. So
Thank you very much, Eric. That's perfect, and I'm sure that makes Catherine very.
and the other point I want to make is we are still looking for maintenance employees, and actually we're likely going to be looking for folks to help out next year in multiple different positions, facilitating with the transfer station work and some additional maintenance work in the field. So we have a real need. We have exceptional benefits. If you know anybody that's looking for employment that has a good work ethic and is willing to learn, we can, there's almost no limit to where we can go with this. We're a great employer and we're really excited to be working with new people. So if you know somebody or if you're looking for something yourself, give me a call and we'll try to figure something out.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Eric, for those reports. We'd like to go to the boards, committees, commissions, and departments. We have 5 minutes to approve the minutes, I guess, of these committees. Were there any questions about those in your packet? Thank you very much, Age Friendly. Thank you, Library Board. Thank you, Comprehensive Plan. Thank you, Trails Committee. And thank you, Cemetery Committee as well. All right.
A lot of interesting reading.
A lot of interesting reading.
Sorry, I had something else to mention. that I
Please.
forgot. So the Readfield Recreation is doing a fall food drive on Saturday. It's at the drop-off location is at the middle school soccer field from 8:30 till 12.
I just want to point out that according to the website, that happened on the 16th.
And it was rained out,
Okay,
so
gotcha.
that it should be updated.
Gotcha.
I will make a note to update that on the website.
Yes, because I just looked at it and I was
We
like,
want-
oh, that happened on Saturday.
we want
But if
people
it
to show.
rained, then
Yeah.
it didn't happen
Not
on
happen.
Saturday. So I will post that right now on our Facebook page. Thank you.
I just sent you the updated flyer.
Oh, you did.
You guys are so good.
Aren't we?
Are you techie people?
Scary
I would
techie
entertain, I would entertain a
That's not
motion
me.
to approve the minutes of those committees. Don't need to?
That's
Really?
okay though, Ralph. It's all right.
Then never mind. Thank you for supporting them. We move on to public communication. Are there any members of the public here or on Zoom or there who would like to address the select board? Seeing none, we will move on to appointments, reappointments, and resignations. In your packet, we will go through these one at a time. Our agenda item 22041, consider the appointment of Sonia Clark as warden and moderator for the November 2nd, 2021 voting at the Kents Hill School. Back this way.
I will, now that I'm there, it's on page 33. I will make a motion to appoint Sonia Clark as the warden moderator for Readfield for the election on November 2nd, 2021.
I'll second.
No,
Either.
you second.
No, you second.
It's been moved and seconded by both of you to consider the appointment of Sonia Clark as warden, and moderator for the November 2nd, 2021 voting. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. Consider the, oh, sorry, Catherine, do you have something?
I'll make a motion to approve the slate of ballot and election clerks as stated in the packet for the election on November 2nd, 2021.
Yes, there is a slate of folks there on the page 34 for ballot and election clerks. Do we need to name them or we just need to go through it? Thank you, Karen, Greg, Thomas, Kim, Elaine, Andy, and Lorene, Marilyn, Grace, Sonia, Catherine, Steve, and Thelma. It's been moved and seconded to approve this slate of ballot election clerks. All in favor? Thank you very much. Next item is item let's see, we did those. Oh, it's the 2245, which is the resignation of Greg Weinbach from the Conservation Commission.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation of Greg Weinbach from the Conservation Commission with deep regret. I think it's very unfortunate what happened, and I think we're going to miss his expertise greatly.
Yes, I'd like to say that Greg is a man of great integrity, and I am sorry that the Conservation Commission will lose his service. However, I know that Greg is now interested in the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and we welcome him there.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the resignation of Greg Weinbach with regrets from the Conservation Commission. Is there any further discussion? Now, all in favor?
That's
Now go, there we go. Yes, excellent. All right.
A little early, Sean.
A little early.
When you read, bud.
Well, thank you very much.
Well,
We
the
have,
ends are like live tonight.
we have made it to old business. We move now to old business item 22007, 007. Consider the issuance of a marijuana establishment license for Aaron Neely of Readfield Apothecary LLC, doing business as Moonglow Cannabis at 1146 Main Street in Readfield. We've allotted 30 minutes for this discussion. Aaron, if you want to take the podium, and if we have anything, we can go. The information is in your packet. I believe we also, Catherine Lewis is joining us on your behalf. Is that true, Aaron, or just?
Yes, on Zoom, and also have Brandon Sandler here. Actually, I misspelled, did his name in the packet, but this is Brandon Sandler, and he does security.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. We
And I
appreciate
just want to make a note that just because we allotted 30 minutes doesn't mean we have to use 30 minutes, right?
No, we don't.
I mean, if we finish early, it's okay.
Absolutely. I just like to mention that so people have it planted, and basically just be able to discuss this. I'd just like to say thank you for this particular packet. I felt like you listened and heard some of the concerns, and I feel much better now reading through this and understanding a little bit more about your business operations and certainly the security, which I think was one of our most important things that we talked about. Chip is here also to serve as an advisor, and I would open it up to any discussion or questions that the board may have while Aaron is here.
I think you addressed a lot of the issues, if not all of them, because I didn't write them all down. So looking at this just like as a new application, I think it is done fine. My only question is about some of the parking in the diagram. I can't remember when I read this. It shows that there's parking spaces. I believe those are all out back. And to my knowledge, that's all like overgrown field area. Is that, and you said that the landlord was assuring you that those spots would be available. So is that going to be cut back or made into parking or?
Oh, yeah, we definitely cut those back and make them, car appropriate. So people don't have to be worried about getting ticks or anything, stepping out of the car. But there also are those, maybe two spots that are, in front of the address as well. But yeah, definitely want to make those, congenial for people, convenient parking.
And I think right now there's a whole lot of like tree length wood piled in what looks like it's the driving area. Is that going to be removed, or are you guys working around that?
At least maybe working around it for now. I mean, it is an enormous pile of wood.
It is. I don't envy the person fixing it all up.
That's right. Probably,
But yeah.
It's probably visible from space.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot.
As I understand it, the throughway, or what has been traditionally been the throughway, is to the right of it. The pile is actually more towards 1150 Main Street. But I am hoping that pile can be resolved.
Is that heating your place, Aaron?
Well, let's see. It's going to be, I guess it's going to be heat for 1146 and 1150.
Okay.
It's turning into kind of a communal pile, I guess, but it's not my pile.
No, gotcha. Understood. Yeah.
That's the landlord's pile.
That was my big concern in reading through this, was just there's always been some parking issues in terms of having enough spaces for the permit, not necessarily for the number of people who are there, but, want to make sure that you have comfortable spaces, like you said, for your patrons. So,
Yeah, definitely don't want to create any obstacles in terms of retail, don't want to make it hard for people or create hurdles.
right.
So,
And
yeah.
the entrance for patrons is on the street side only?
It is. I mean, right now, that does seem to be just like the most logical thing.
Yep.
So hopefully through signage, that will be very clear where people are to walk.
And there is a pathway between the two buildings, right, that they can walk through?
There is a pathway between those buildings.
Great.
It's maybe a little awkward, I guess, I don't know, but that's a
I think any normal human being coming into your place will know to enter on the street. I think we got that.
Yeah,
right,
but we could have
it's
a,
like-
you know-
Where the sign will be.
Yeah, it's where the sign will be, yeah.
yeah, we could have some signage, just in back, just so people know where to go.
Or the back could say just employees only or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
Go around the front. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, in the product safety heading in your memo, your last bullet, per planning board edict, there will be no selling of live plants, seedlings at this location until such time as they are an approved activity, which I guess is part of the planning board's structure for these things. But I noticed in your application in section 5, there is still that section there that says you're looking for the opportunity to have up to that 30 plant minimum. I guess my question is more to Chip. Is that just a placeholder in case the opportunity presents itself and you don't amend your application at this point to permit that?
Remember that this is medical caregiver. This is not retail adult. And the planning board, this is the first in the town.
Right.
Go gently, tread gently. But it is an approved retail application. So one of the few requests was that there not be sales of live plants as in many of the dealers. And Aaron thankfully accepted that. So the place, that was in the original application state. That's legal by the state. It's not by the planning board. As things go along, works out well. You can come back next year and say, well.
So the fact that this is still in the application is simply a placeholder to get him in line should the planning board want to address that issue at a future point in time.
I turn it around and say it's a placeholder for Mr. Kelly. Planning board's not going to ask him to sell more if that's marijuana.
Understood. I'm just saying that there's a
Yep,
conflict here. He's saying, no, I'm not going to do it,
right.
but the application says, yes, I want to do it. So
Look,
what's the distinction?
well, can I say something? I mean, you're right, the application does say that. I still would like to, I mean, it's still, I don't want to say pending with the planning board, but they basically instructed me to say, we'll look at this again if you have an engineer draw up a complete odor control plan, and then you can bring it back to us and we'll give you an answer at that point. So that's still, in my mind, potentially on the table, although really I'm looking elsewhere for an opportunity to cultivate. Because it's not a really an ideal spot anyway.
It seems like the potential is like the intent would still be there, but it doesn't seem like to me. I mean, it seems like to me, the planning board said, hey, listen, come back. You're okay with that. I'm not really, I agree with you. I don't think having your place there, it seems like it would be less than ideal anyway. So I see what you're saying.
Right. But, at the time it did seem like, I'm not going to be, I just want to, get things going and I'm not going to be super choosy. So I thought I might try that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be doing anything without the planning board's approval as far as that.
And I think then what you're basically saying is the application is a placeholder
Yes.
for some future point in time.
Right.
Should circumstances allow you to come back, then you don't have to file a new application with the state.
Right.
to put words in your mouth.
Right.
I was very pleased with the security plan. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
And I know we had talked about, do you really want to tell everybody what your security is? But I think,
This was done in such a good way, I feel
yes,
like, yeah.
but once anybody walks into your store, they'll know what your security is. Because they'll see if the windows have bars or don't, or have alarms or have cameras or whatever. And it was done well and marked out nicely on the diagram. I couldn't read because of the photocopy, the total cost, but I added it up and it seems like it's reasonable. So thank you for addressing that part of it.
Yeah, and Brandon, will there be some kind of notification on the front of the shop that there's some type of security there, protected by such and such, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's signs that we can give you that say alarms protected by RROS.
Brandon, would you mind going to the, I'm sorry, buddy, it's gonna help us out.
You want me
Thank
to
you,
take
sir.
this off or leave it on?
It's up to you.
It's up to you guys. Yeah, so we can give them signs that say secured by R and ROS. The location is going to be transmitting to a monitoring facility. So if somebody does break into the place, Aaron gets a notification. The alarm place gets a notification, lets him know if he doesn't answer, the police respond. So there is adequate monitoring. All of the devices and all of the products are in full compliance with the Maine marijuana regulations and all of the requirements that the place needs to meet to be fully secure. So, I mean, I definitely think we laid it out so we cover everything without making it go through the roof in cost. And I think that between the live monitoring and the active monitoring notifications on the windows and, the other areas of interest, the deterrence effect will be more than sufficient.
I agree. Go ahead, Ralph.
Will any of these security connections go directly to either the sheriff's office or state police?
Yes. The alarm system is directly connected to the state police and the sheriff's department. Well, yeah, who's the primary responder out here? Is it the state police or the sheriff's? Kennebec County?
It's the sheriff.
Yeah, so it goes to Kennebec County. Yeah, so basically what happens is the alarm's going to be triggered. Aaron gets a phone call immediately from the alarm monitoring company. He can then check his cameras. If he doesn't answer, our office gets a phone call. We can check the cameras to validate if anybody's actually there, if it's a false alarm. If nobody answers, the police are immediately called and dispatched. If at any point we check our camera systems or he doesn't answer and we check and can't see the cameras or can't see the signal, or we do see somebody unauthorized, we immediately dispatch or tell them to dispatch from our office. And then the sheriffs will come out immediately, or the sheriffs will call the closest local PD, whether it's sheriff or state police, who's ever in the area.
Gotcha.
But yes, there is full communication and full monitoring.
It's just certainly don't want Aaron to be the first responder.
No, so basically he gets a call from the alarm monitoring company saying, hey, your alarm's going off. Are you is that you? Are you there? And he's going to say, no, I'm not there. They're going to say, what do you want us to do? The cameras in conjunction with the alarm system allow him to verify everything and can go from there.
Right. Yes, Eric.
Dennis, it was noted in the application, but I want to say again that RNROS does provide video surveillance for our transfer station and town office, and soon we'll be installing the point of sale system.
Yes.
So we have a great relationship with them, and they do excellent work.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's good to hear, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I have a question about the bathroom. I don't care who answers it. I don't know that it's particularly security, but as I was reading, the bathroom for the Emporium part of the building is in your part of the building? Is that correct?
No, I tried to go to the diagram. There should be an emporium area that is past the door between the brick room we're talking about, the door between that and the emporium, kind of labeled the emporium side of the emporium area.
Right.
You do have to walk across the emporium to get to the bathroom.
Yes, it's just the opposite of what you're saying, Catherine.
Well, so an employee of yours has to go into the Emporium
That is correct.
to use a facility.
Right, there's just
Okay.
no other bathroom, and,
And so you expect that to be one-way traffic only, so does the door lock from the other side, so it's only the employee can go through to the Emporium, not the other way?
We definitely have it that way. Granted, it actually does having a camera above that door also to just monitor
Yeah.
the flow there. But we definitely have a one-way door, I guess, that makes sense.
I mean, I put that back to the people who know the most, but I mean,
I
that
think
would really
we-
be a second entrance then if it's not a locked door.
I think, I have to double check, but I think we discussed or added to the quote of arming that door when they're not there, so that if somebody from the Emporium side is to try to enter, it would be triggered. And then, as Aaron was saying, we talked about putting a camera on that side. So if somebody was to try to attempt to come through that door, we'd have video verification of that happening.
And right now, there is no Emporium.
Correct.
So, ultimately, I don't think it will.
Well, but there's probably an owner on premises and, I mean, the idea here is that this needs to be your business and just you are controlling the flow of people in and out. So.
Go ahead, Ralph.
One last question from me. In terms of the install work and all the rest of that, I'm assuming that's permit required?
It all depends on whether you guys require a permit to pull low voltage.
That's a chip question.
From the town's perspective, I would think that as part of this process, we would like documentation that it's happened so that we know everything.
$2,000, they would put a full building permit, and I will do a check when it's complete.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if it's permitted work that requires a license, we have a low voltage license and can apply and give you that information if you need it. So
Chip, I trust Chip to handle that.
Yeah.
Question.
Yes, Kim.
So Aaron, good job. You definitely did your homework. Looks like you went around to other establishments. It's very thorough. I like when you said the products will be kept behind the bar in the employees only area. That's really good. And they will be sealed, so there won't be a smell. I think some people had a concern about that. Also that there's no smoking or vaping in or around the facility, I think is good. I think some people feared just going to be like a hangout. So that's good. And then all employees will have background checks. It's very thorough. I thought I saw somewhere in here and now I can't find it. Is there some kind of licensing that you need to have, or do you have to upkeep it, or do you need certain kind of educational hours or CEs or anything like that? I don't know what the regulations are at all on that.
Maybe could I ask, is Catherine Lewis there?
Yes, she is, and she's on Zoom. Catherine, I see you unmuted. Would you like to throw this to Catherine?
Yeah, I was wondering, Catherine, you might be able to answer that. If there's any.
She is speaking right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lewis. I'm the board president of Medical Marijuana Caregivers Trade Association. I'm also the director of education and teach all the caregiving classes. Aaron has been, excuse me, I've been home with stupid COVID for 3 weeks and my throat still is a long time. Hence why I'm here and not joining you folks. Aaron has participated in our classes. He's a member of the organization and he stays up with the ongoing education. It is not required. He does it voluntarily. And I can speak on that just because I'm the one teaching. We have monthly meetings to stay up to date on the changes within the law and the rules we work with the state on, and we help the caregivers in understanding what's coming down the road.
Excellent. And in addition to those classes, you do need to just renew it's a yearly renewal of licensure. Is that correct, Catherine?
Correct. It's an annual licensing fee. The state does a background check to make sure there's no criminal activity within the year. And then they issue the license based on that. There's also random inspections. The state has increased its inspection capability. They are doing random inspections and scheduled inspections.
Dennis?
Yes, please.
So if Aaron were to elect to have part-time employees, their background checks would go through that state protocol so that there would be an official way to check employees' backgrounds?
Correct. All employees must have a background check.
Of any cannabis operation.
Now, are they
Correct.
licensed, are employees licensed at all, or just Aaron, just the owner?
All employees get the background check and are licensed, and they are capable of doing anything that the owner is. They can deal with the cannabis, they can deal with the plants, they can deal with patients. So anything that Aaron can do, they can do on his behalf with his permission.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else for Catherine while she is joining us?
No, I just had one other question. I don't know who answers it, but again, like Carol, there was so much to read. I'm not able to find exactly what I'm looking for. But Aaron, I believe you said that one of the conditions for safe storage of your product when you're not open is to be in a building that has deadbolts or to use a safe. So this is a one-room operation, as I see on the diagram.
Yes.
Okay, and so if the doors are deadbolt locked, that doesn't mean necessarily that the material's being put into a safe, but it's in the building and they have deadbolts. Is that correct?
Right. And I believe that's town ordinance.
Okay. Yep, great.
And just a side comment, 8 PM seems a little late, but that's up to you. If you're gonna have, the business hours. This poor sleepy little town, 8 PM seems a little bit late, but
Right.
if you don't have foot traffic, then you'll adjust.
Oh, totally,
Right.
totally. I was, initially just kind of looking at the Readfield family market and being like, well, if they're open till late, maybe I could be open till 8. 'Cause,
Right.
They've got an ATM and stuff. But then they're open till 7, like half the year. So, point taken, Carol. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely don't want to change the character of the town with, late night stuff.
No, I think the free market will determine when you close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you'll figure that out as you go through.
Yep.
Yeah, good call.
Right.
Any other questions for Aaron, for Catherine, for Brandon? Very well.
Catherine, just get better.
Yeah, get better, feel better.
I hope to be back to work by the end of the week.
Yay.
All right. Well, good. Excellent. All right. Is there any further discussion on this item 22007?
Just love that it's 007.
I do too. Yes, indeed. Especially with the new movie coming out. I would entertain a motion to approve this license for Aaron Neely and Readfield Apothecary doing business as Moonglow Cannabis.
I'll make a motion to approve the approval of the establishment of the Blue Moonglow Apothecary in Readfield, Maine.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the marijuana establishment license for Aaron Neely and Readfield Apothecary doing business as Moonglow Cannabis. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Very well. Thank you very much, Aaron. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this work.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge Chip Stevens. He worked pretty closely with me, and Eric's helped out, and Dennis helped out, and Catherine, and Brandon, and everybody. Yeah, I appreciate the help, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for doing the work. We move on to items. We did the renewals, so we're to 22047. Consider proposals and select a municipal auditor. We have 5 minutes adjusted for this. Eric, do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, so we had ended the relationship with our prior auditor after 3 years. We did not exercise mutual agreement, the extension to 5 years. And so we put out a request for proposals, and we received 2 responses. One was from our prior auditor with a schedule of fees for 3 and then up to 5 years. And then we received a letter saying, thank you, maybe next time. So that's why I had said earlier, we had 1.5 responses. So truly, we had 1 responsive proposal. And the reason we had switched auditors wasn't because they weren't doing a decent job. But because we had had the same auditor for 10 years, and every once in a while you want to try something different, get a different set of eyes on the audit. Unfortunately, with the new auditor, we had a new set of eyes every year. So that continuity really wasn't there. And so that's one of the reasons why we didn't continue. But my recommendation is that we work again with, of course, RHR Smith, there we go, on our audit. And I wouldn't have an issue with a full 5-year approval, but it's up to the board whether you'd like to go with just the original 3 or go to 5. I think that the pricing is reasonable, and it might be good to lock it in for 5.
Eric, I have a question about
Yeah.
this. Was not a reason, sounds very Shakespearean, but weren't we also concerned with the timeliness of the RHR Smith audit results, that when we switched, we wanted to try to get it earlier? Is that correct?
That's right. That was one of the things that we did have at that time. And I guess, we can certainly try again. I don't believe it's going to be an issue.
Okay. I just wanted to I make sure I was thinking correctly.
No, you're right. And I'd forgotten about that we did have issues with timeliness, although COVID has really changed my expectations on that a little bit.
Yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, that's a valid point. Thanks, Chip.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
When I was looking at it, I thought that we were looking at a 5-year deal with 2-year renewal options after the 3rd year, correct?
It's a 3-year, 3+2.
Well, I would think that 3+2 would give maybe you the flexibility you might like to have if things don't work out.
Yes, I would prefer to do a 3-year with an option personally, but that's
Is
just.
that
me.
an offer?
Yeah, it's in the contract.
It's an option that we have.
It's an option that says 3 at 7
Mhm.
and then 2 at 7.5, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Yes, but did we have to accept the 2 now? Or could the 2 be later?
No, the 2 can be later.
Well, I thought you would accept a 3-year with a 2-year renewal option
Right.
based on acceptance by both parties.
Basically, I would like to do the 3 years with the option to continue. That's what I would like.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit proposal from RHR Smith for a period of 3 years at $7,000 per year with an optional 2-year extension of $7,500 for each of those years.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept RHR Smith and Company's proposal for auditing the town's accounts. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. We move on to our next agenda item, which is 22048. Consider the use of ARPA funds. This is American Recovery and Prosperity Act. I just made that up, but it's 15 minutes for this item. Eric, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. So I put together a memo, which is actually different than the memo I started writing a month ago, in large part because I was able to spend a bit more time reviewing the standards and expectations for these federal dollars that are coming down to the towns. And just by way of background, I won't read the whole thing, but I will mention that the town was awarded $271,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds. And that we've currently received the first half, I guess the word they use in the field is tranche, but the first set of payments on that.
Like a bond trade.
We don't know when the second half will be released, just that it's likely going to be in 2022 sometime. So it probably at least 6 to 8 months out before that second half comes in, from what I understand. But in large part because they want to give people time to see what happens and make adjustments with how that money is spent if appropriate. And then it's also worth noting that that money does not have to be spent for a few years. We do have until, I believe, 2024, December 31st, 2024, to expend those resources. So this doesn't necessarily have to be an all an all-at-once type of proposal. Thank you, Chip. And I think that the intent is that it's not, and the proposal that I have before the board tonight is certainly not that. I'm not even sure we've accounted for the full first half that we are looking at. But I did go through and identify the potential uses that were available, and they fall into 4 or 5 major categories. The first is public health expenditures, things like improving infrastructure for delivering health services relating to COVID. Second is addressing negative economic impacts, and that's for household businesses and other emergency services. And the third item is replacing lost public sector revenue. This one doesn't apply to us, and it doesn't apply to many towns in the state of Maine. We actually had more revenue during the pandemic than we had previously, because a lot of people spent their money to buy new cars, and everybody paid their taxes. And so, or not everybody, but more than usual paid their taxes. So we actually saw an increase in revenue. We did see some real drops in things like recreation revenue, but compared to the areas where we saw improvements, it didn't shake out. And so we're looking at net revenue. So that one does not apply to us. Providing premium pay for essential workers is the fourth category, and then investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Those are the 5 key areas. And so, as a point of reference, the board did approve $50,000 on July 19th of 2021 for some broadband expenditure to get the asset inventory that we just completed done. And so I think that we're just a few thousand, probably 5,000 under that rate now. I think we spent about 45. So that looks good, and it looks to be a pretty solid expenditure there. So that leaves us with, let's see, I did the math on it, $85,000 and change remaining in this first tranche to consider what to do with. And originally I had thought that we could spend some of this money on recreation improvements and even recreation staffing. That may have been more possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it may have been more possible had we fallen into the category of being a qualified census tract, which basically means being a low-income census tract. I think it's something like 60% of the area median income. We don't fall into that category, and so many of the social services expenditure options that are available to those qualified tracts, things like childcare services, help with education services, some recreation and youth activities, things like that, we're not eligible for under the current guidance. I hope that's changed because it would be a value for us to be able to do that, but it doesn't appear to be, to me, that that's an option that we have right now. The area that we can look at for recreation would be maintenance of facilities that may have seen increased use. But that would maybe be things like mowing the ball field or maybe some work at the beach, but not capital projects and not staffing as I understand it right now. I am going to look into it more because I think it's important. That being said, the one area that I do see as being a real viable option is premium pay. And in my memo, I identified several reasons, but what it really comes down to is 3 things. The need to recognize and reward employees that did put themselves on the line over the past 18 months. Many of them with no choice to work from home, having to work in person, but others being here in the town office and having in-person interactions or providing support services for those folks that were also on the front line. So that's one reason. The other reason is really, it's 2 of them together, attracting and retaining employees. One of the results of COVID has been a rapid escalation in wages, especially for the lower end of the wage scale, which we do have a few employees that are at that. And so it's important for us to recognize that COVID impact and try to, in my view, increase our wage scale in order to attract and retain staff. So those are the three big things that I wanted to point out as far as reasons for this proposal. I did provide two schedules for the board to consider. One would be the effect of an increase through the end of the fiscal year, which would be June 30, which is about as far out as I think we should go, given the budgeting that we have. Also, the fact that things may change in the next 6 months. I think it's worth just taking this one step at a time. The other proposal would be just for reference, the annualized cost of this increase. And I guess the last item that I had wanted to mention, that I did mention in my memo, is that in January, the minimum wage is going to go up to $12.75, which is an ongoing result of legislation that was passed, I think, 3 years ago, raising the minimum wage and then setting a fixed CPI increase, consumer price index increase. So if that went into effect without a change, we would have some of our lower paid employees. Doesn't mean that that there's an imbalance there, but some of our lower paid employees would be less than $1 above minimum wage. And so there are a lot of different reasons, a lot of things coming together related to COVID primarily, including the shortage of staffing, why I'm recommending this. So I believe it's a valuable thing to consider. I have discussed it with the union, considering that they should be aware of it and may have had something to say about it. They did ask about going beyond June, and they did ask about including other bonuses. And I said, I think that the best way to approach this, the cleanest way, is to look at it as a straight $2 an hour bonus pay going forward through that date. And we can talk about the rest of it after we get to the budget process and after we have a better idea of what wages are really looking like. Right now, the state economist has said that wages have gone up 10-15% for low-income jobs in the past, or moderate income jobs. They're becoming lower as minimum wage increases. But the changes are there. We just have an option to respond. I think this would be an appropriate use of these funds, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you very much. If you, just for reference, it's page 116 in the packet has the schedule of items for you. Are there any questions about this? Go ahead, Carol.
I do. So do town employees have like an annual raise usually anyway? Is there like a certain?
We do.
schedule?
So typically, I think the contract calls for a minimum of 2%.
2.5 over 3 years, I believe, is what we agreed.
Okay, yeah, so it's something like that. We are in the third year of the contract.
Third year already?
We're getting, starting in July 1 will be the third year.
Second year.
Yeah, we're in the second year. So the next budget cycle is the third year. And so they have that. They do also have the option of a merit increase. So if they exceed more than a base, it's much more than a baseline, right? It's true merit. They can receive up to an additional 3% increase for that. And so
That's a bonus.
That's a bonus. Yes, it's a bonus that's paid out as a lump sum based on their performance.
That was a negotiated part of the contract versus what the union came in and asked for, which was step increases based on longevity. And
we balked at that.
Yes, we did. As a member of that negotiating committee, the feeling was that you should simply be rewarded by virtue of having been around for a long time. Hence, the bonus situation, which the union agreed was eminently fair, and it's stepped based on performance rankings that Eric does annually. And you're going to get your 2.5%. And if you are in the excellent top category, you're going to get a top bonus, which would ultimately mean that you're probably going to get somewhere around a 5% total raise.
It's pretty good.
The problem is that some of our lower levels, this is my perspective, I'm speaking only for myself here. The problem is that some town employees, if you had to replace them, you couldn't come close to getting them for what we're paying now, even with that bonus component. So I think this is a good first step. I think the liability here is that we're looking at this bonus payment for a shortened period of time with no guarantee that it's going to continue on beyond this present budget year. And you're going to create, knowing human nature, you're going to create expectations that you might not be able to meet. We have a bare bones staff here, and we've already lost one key employee. We really can't afford to lose more staff because there isn't much staff to begin with. So I think that the $2 step makes sense. The union has signed off on it. And the agreement is to talk about it come fiscal year 23. But we really need to take a look at the big picture, long haul, if you will. And I would suggest that when we get ready to talk about these things again, we look at what we think it would cost us to replace that position and offer a wage scale that will attract somebody to apply and make that our low-end benchmark. Otherwise, I think we're going to be subject to a lot of vulnerability if people leave for better options. And it is a labor-friendly market right now. People want to leave, they can find something.
Right.
And it's not just that people don't want to work. It's just that now there are other options and the market is much more fluid. So I think we need to take that into account. I like the idea that we're going to do this $2 an hour bump, but I think that's a starting point. And when you guys get ready to negotiate again, I think the salary component needs to be based on what's it going to cost me to get an entry-level person to do this job description.
Right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Yeah, Carol?
So we're going to do this bump until June, and then we're going to ask to roll it back?
Well, no, so we're going to do it till June. That's absolutely right. Through June 30th, through that, I think it's 35 weeks of pay at the end of the fiscal year. During the next several months, we're going to talk about the budget process next year. We're going to be discussing this, and I'm going to make some similar statements to the budget committee. I truly believe that we are seeing a major shift in what's happening in the world of employment. And I'm going to recommend to the budget committee that this increase continue. And as Ralph, I think, is suggesting that might just be a starting point. I hope it's a good starting point, right? But I think it is. But I have seen and heard from our employees, from other employers, from other municipalities, from businesses, that we're not far off from having a $15 minimum wage, regardless of what the state of Maine says, just to get a warm body to fill a position. And that we, in order to be competitive, we have to be somewhere in that range. We also have an exceptional benefits package that needs to be considered, needs to be looked at. But it might be that when we start negotiating with the union, we decide, well, maybe people would rather have more money in their pockets and not have the same benefits. They probably want to have the same benefits and more money anyway. Human nature, right? But it's one of those things that we need to account for that. Right now, we don't have the flexibility really to do much other than offer what we have. And right now, the benefits package, I think, is very good. It's some of the best that's out there, but that's not enough to get people to apply for these positions right now. And it's an unfortunate thing, but I'm scared to death, honestly, that we're not going to be able to find someone to replace Anna Carl until, May or June of next year. I don't, we're taking every step we can to make sure that's not the case. I think this is a step to, we'll do two things. Like I said, a show of appreciation for the workers, because this really is a premium pay that should be going on through the pandemic and responds to the pandemic pricing. I don't think that pricing is going to go away. So I know that was a long answer, but this is something that I think, need to continue, and I'm looking to continue through the budget process.
So just to clarify, The way that this increase will be paid for this year will be through the ARPA funds.
Yep.
But what we will do for future years to ensure that this raise, as well as any other raise that we do, we want to work that into the budget. That's what we're saying.
That's my recommendation.
Yes.
And I will point out that you could continue to use ARPA funds for another year after that. I mean, because again, these don't have to be expended. So if you chose, you could float that out, do it for 2 years. I'm not recommending that right now at all because we have to be mindful of the negotiations with the union, which is an important consideration here because it's a majority of our hourly staff. So anyway,
Ralph, please.
And be advised that if you take from this pot to do wages and benefits, you are diminishing the availability of capital funds or other things we want to do. And to my mind, the most important one is the capital improvements we want to do for the rec group, for which I believe these funds are eligible.
well, they're likely not, unfortunately. Yeah, no, and it's a heartbreak because I had big plans, as you know. And I think the board did too on how to work all that stuff
Well,
forward.
then,
But
the alternative is that we shuffle them to broadband,
Not for this.
which is eligible.
Right.
And that pot is larger. One way or another, we're going to pay for some component out of tax dollars. And originally, I think we had all hoped that we could take a significant chunk of that money, which would virtually meet all of our capital costs for the rec plans.
Right.
Come very close to it, and then exclusively rely on tax funding to do broadband. It doesn't seem like we're going to be able to do that now, but that money will shift to broadband and it'll offset there.
Well, the initial funds were, was it February or March? We first heard about the initial funds, and it was in July that they were then modified to talk about how Parks and Rec could be used for the QCT. I think thinking it's decided or finished at this point is silly because we're only 7-8 months into this process of a 4-year spend. So I'm resident to diminish that any of our ideas have already gone. I just want to.
I'm not following what you're saying.
I think what Ralph was saying is the funding mechanism may not be there that we had thought of. I don't think you were saying that the project would.
No, the project, it's just what pot are we going to pay for it out of?
Yeah, and I'm saying we don't know if that pot's really gone. Because
exactly.
this is a continual.
Well,
And
if it's a
legislation.
continual dance, then it just makes the budget process that much more difficult because
It does.
you want to assign those dollars, quote unquote discretionary dollars, to specific projects, but you can't do it if you don't know whether or not you can actually spend the monies for those outcomes.
Carol?
My thought is the ARPA funds should be for something, a one-time expense, not something that's going to be prolonged and eternal. It's for something substantial, something that can help the town and a large number of the town folk. The employment market is awful when they're paying $15 at McDonald's with sign-on bonuses. It's very awful. You know, I don't know how most small businesses can retain good, low-paying employees. It's just a really tough time for everything. I guess I'm hesitant to vote for something that's going to be hard to discontinue. Or is this the best use of the ARPA funds? I do know it does say about broadband that will help everybody, and those that had to work remotely, or even those trying to connect right now have frequent, problems with their internet connection. That's something that could be used for these funds, and I think it does fall into those categories that can benefit a lot of people. I don't know. I guess I'm a little hesitant
I hear you.
to use it this way.
I hear you. And I got to say, I thought about this a bit too, because what I don't want to do is prove to be some sort of false sense of, moving forward. But what I also think, and to use your same line of questioning, Carol, I don't think there's any more valuable resource that we have discovered over the course of this pandemic than the people that we have. And I think that we have such a quality staff in the first place that giving them this pay raise, which I think they desperately deserve, does in fact trickle down to more people. Because when you come into this town office and you are conducting your business, I hope that whoever is waiting on you feels like it is not only a liaison to the town, a representative of what we do and how we conduct our business in Readfield. And that little bit of thing, I think, ripples out into more people than just the people getting paid. So I thought about this as well. And I think when I see that a $2 raise will bring our lowest paid employee to a little over $15 an hour, to me, it's part of the value of the people that we do have. And rather than worry about trying to hire someone else or things like that, I think if we retain the employees we have, show them that we appreciate it, even though it is funded for this moment, what I think we can do is we can start that process by saying, we appreciate those employees because that resonates all through town. And to me, when I go to the transfer station and I want that employee that represents Readfield to be able to talk to folks and to make that place welcome. Same thing with the library, same thing downstairs, same thing at the fire department. So I too felt a little weird about it because it does feel like it's a one-time thing that we might not be able to sustain, but I think it's worth it in the long run because investing in people, I think, is always a good bet. Catherine?
So I can address that issue and also give my opinion. I think it's needed. I have all kinds of issues with the employment market that's in our current situation here, not just in the town, but everywhere. I find it baffling. I have noted in all of those fast food places and other places that premium pay is only for full-time employees who will commit to working a full week. So those $15 an hour to start has an asterisk. Mm-hmm. And it's for people who are committing. It's not for I'll work 8 hours a week for you. They're not getting the 15. And those are the kind of employees we have, the employees who have signed on to be full-time. I think a really important piece of this is that the select board gives direction each year to the budget committee. We don't give them commands. So it's direction. These are our goals. These are our preferences. We would like you to see what you can do to make these things happen. Is that a reasonable way of saying that?
Absolutely. We're going to talk about select board goals next month. Yeah.
And so if we decide that this is a good thing to do, and I think the writing's on the wall and the union has agreed to it, it's in writing in our packet, then our choice can be to give direction to the budget committee that we want this to continue. So please find a way to fund this. And they may say, okay, then we would like to use the ARPA funds to continue funding this for next year and the year after. Or they may say, okay, we just need to have this come out of the general tax base. But we give that charge to them to figure out. Yeah. So I don't see this as starting something that we can't continue. I see this as something that's, as Eric said, that is necessary. I think Ralph also mentioned that. And I think it's deserved. And I think if anybody remembers a couple of years ago when we started this increase in minimum wage, I said, we're going to end up having to put wages up here in Readfield.
Of course.
Because it's not fair that the minimum wage goes up $1 an hour and someone who's been here for 5 years working along is making $1 more than minimum wage now when they were making $2 more. So I think just in light of what's been happening with minimum wage, we need to do this. And I think that's another discussion we should charge the budget committee with is finding out, are we equalized across other communities in terms of how this happens? And then the poor taxpayer is the one who has to pay for this. And not everybody is getting a $2 an hour raise. So I think the employees are demonstrating that they're grateful. by signing the agreement and that they're appreciative. So I think it's a win-win.
I'd like to begin to wrap up this conversation unless there is more that needs to be said, or we can simply take our vote.
What if we, maybe like what Kathy said, is $2 are for full-time employees and less is for part-time employees? Since
I
we're
would not
showing a
support
commitment.
that. It's
Okay.
got to be everyone equal, is
I don't
in
think we
my
have
eye.
any part-time
We don't.
employees.
Oh, we have a couple that are, so the librarian is one that's only 24 hours a week. But that's one of the most valuable services that we have, and she was instrumental during the pandemic, organizing community outreach, helping with phone calls to people that were, elderly and needing help. I think it would be most equitable to do that. The other employee that we have, or the other employees that we have that aren't 40 hours a week, and again, this comes down to your definition of full-time. It's a bit arbitrary. Sometimes we pay benefits sometimes for employees that are working 32 hours a week, full-time. But we have Kristen Parks, who's not 40, and both of the transfer station attendants are technically 37 and a half. I think that everybody is contributing in a way that would make it worthwhile for us. Again, this wouldn't be for the people mowing the grass in the summertime that come from the high school. This wouldn't be, we're gonna have our own challenges trying to find those positions this summer. But I think that most of our employees are at least, all of our employees are at least 20 that I'm proposing this for. And again, this is for hourly employees only. This is not for me. I'm a contract employee. So this is just for the hourly. And I think it'd be appropriate to do it across the board.
Those people are all working full-time for the hours that they can work. I mean, the library is not open more hours, so the librarian is working the full time that's available, the same as at the transfer station.
Ralph, and then we'll
Just
go to a vote.
The FTE issue is a nuanced discussion to begin with. Our new pension structure recognizes the fact that if you're a town employee and you are working 1,000 hours a year,
Just 20 a week, basically.
20 a week, you're eligible for a pension benefit. So I would say that let's not split hairs here. In terms of administrative simplicity and cutting the complexity out of it, we need to just take care of everybody who's on the payroll with this, at least for this fiscal year, and then let the budget committee and select board input make a determination as how we would go going forward.
Thank you.
I have one clarification I need to make. Just because it was in the presentation. Eric, you said that we had 270,000 and we spent 50, so that leaves us with 85. You mean that leaves us out of the first check with 85,000?
That's absolutely
Not
right.
out-
That's
we still
cash
have-
on hand. And that speaks to Sean's point a little bit about the fact that we don't know what's going to happen with the rules. They implemented this rule without public input because it was an emergency rule. So the interim final rule is what they call it. They are now soliciting comment, right? And so it may change. And one of the recommendations I would make is that those, the qualified census tracts, the benefit, those things that they're allowing to happen there, I'd like those to happen other places as well. But I guess, so hopefully that answers your question. The last point I want to make is that I do believe that the employees, many of them went above and beyond and dealt with some really heavy stuff over the last 18 months, and we'll continue to deal with that. We talked about the solid waste committee meeting about how people are just generally much more disagreeable. Not everybody, but a lot of people after 2 years of this. And so we're all continuing to deal with this. And I think that's part of the reason for this is to show appreciation for that work. So.
Are we using ARPA funds for broadband?
Yes, 50,000 has already been allocated.
Okay.
And I expect that we'll be having a discussion about allocating more in the future.
But that'll depend a lot on the vote on the articles.
On November, which is helpful.
I just, everybody's worked under awful circumstances in every sector in this country. So I don't know. I guess I'm still looking at people on fixed incomes. Gas is up, groceries are up, I worry more about people's pocketbooks and being able to afford stuff. And I just don't, my personal opinion, we have great employees. We do want to retain them. I'm hoping that we are close in what the other municipalities around us paid their employees, and maybe we can look at that. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Sure, well, that could be reflected in your vote unless we have other
And
information
these
to put out.
funds are not coming out of local taxpayer monies.
But everybody assuming this is going to go on is, I don't,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't- I
you're
think that's
absolutely
a-
right.
I think what we assume is that it's going to be a worthwhile expense enough to
Okay.
work it into the budget because that's what I think.
I guess one response, I think that one of the things that I see is that, we're in the business of providing services, right? We provide municipal services. And I know that the impact on taxpayers is important, but at some point, if we can't pay a wage that people are willing to work for, we can't provide services. So this is one of those inflection points where I see that, and it's a discussion we need to have and probably will have with the budget. Do we want to provide less services because the cost of services has gone up? And that's a really valid discussion to have. But I think at this point, that's really the only option we have. We can't right now, we've got one person to plow. We've got one person to mow the cemeteries, patch the roads, put up the signs. And if we're not able to fill Anna's position, we're going to continue to have that deficit. And that's a discussion that we need to have about whether we want to continue to provide that level of service. But the indication has been that people are willing to do that. But I can't speak to the future, but it needs to be a budget discussion. And like I said, it's a very valid point that you're making about whether we want to have increased pay come out of tax dollars.
I would make a motion to accept, I'm not sure, what are we calling this?
It would be a premium pay proposal.
I would make a motion to accept the premium pay of $2 per hour for hourly employees funded through ARPA funds as presented.
And that would include the associated peripheral benefits as well, correct?
According to the schedule put forth in the packet through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this per additional pay. Is there any discussion? Sean?
Yeah, I would just like to add an amendment that we, as part of this, the acceptance of this, that we will strategize or work closely with the budget committee to find some way to continue this level of support
I'll
for
second that.
wages for our employees.
Good. So not only are you moving to accept it as listed, but also to commit ourselves to speaking with the budget committee to see how we can continue this.
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion?
So do we need to vote on the amendment and the motion?
Per Robert's rules, yeah, you'd want to vote
Yes.
on the amendment first
Okay.
and then vote on the.
So we are simply voting on the amendment now to include Sean's point about finding a way to continue with the budget committee. That's what our commitment will be after the original motion by Catherine. All in favor of voting on Sean's amendment, raise your hand. Aye. All opposed? Very well, motion carries. So we are going to make would you like to remake your motion, or do we remember what we're doing? So what we're now doing is we are voting to approve the performance, what do we call it?
Premium
Pay by using the ARPA funds across the board, including a promise and commitment to speak with the budget committee to continue. Is there any further discussion on that? Very well. All in favor of increasing pay for town employees? Good. All opposed? Thank you very much. The motion carries. We move on now to item 22049. Consider the budget process for FY23. We have 5 minutes for this, and it is also in your packet on page 128.
Oh, thank you. I've got lost.
Yeah, that's why I'm.
Look at this guy, he's just on fire.
I'm trying. I am trying.
He's cheating.
So I'll just jump in and say that this is the proposed draft schedule for the upcoming budget process. It is similar in many, many ways to what we've done in the past, in part because what we've had in the past has been very efficient, very effective, and led to, I think, some good outcomes and good discussions. We continue the commitment to a lengthy and involved public process, to requesting and holding committees, to providing us with information to inform the budget process and the budget decisions that are made ultimately by the select board. And just for the new members, the way this process works is we have something of an alternating cycle between budget committee meetings and select board meetings, so that comments and requests from each can be considered by the other as we go forward in this iterative process. And that is sprinkled with some special events, including joint workshops, and then, of course, the public hearings. One, in order to help inform the articles, and then one to be much more about education once they've been approved. So that's kind of the high level view for the new members and for the general public about what we're doing here. One thing that I had done is the departments 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom of the page, you have a listing of how those are broken up. That was modified to put capital projects and debt service and road work into one night, one discussion, because it was always a bit disjointed when they were separate. And I can't remember which one was out of the club, but so to speak, but we did have one that wasn't on that same evening. So I moved those together for continuity's sake, even though it's not the proper flow of the divisions in our chart of accounts. The other change is that I did move our second public hearing a bit closer to the actual election. It's still, almost 2 weeks ahead of the vote, which is really when most people are starting to consider this stuff. We do have absentee ballots available 30 days in advance, but I think it's really valuable to make sure that we're meeting people where they are. And people seem to be more engaged, and we have much more interest in the absentee ballots as we get within a couple weeks of the vote. So that was another change that was made. The last change I'll note is that this schedule, the second Tuesday in June, is actually the furthest into the month that we can get. And so we did have to move the schedule more or less a week forward relative to last year for the second half, roughly, of this schedule. So I am sure I made some mistakes here, but I did go through and look at all of the religious holidays I could find and the school calendar. And I think that we're in a position where everything should be attainable and not conflict with some of those important dates. So that's what I have. And Sean.
Yeah, you have the school vacation week pretty busy.
Which one is that?
February break. You've, I know I'm going. February 24th, 22, joint select board budget committee meeting, capital investment plan review, 6:30.
Okay, so I guess that one is one that I
School
missed.
vacation isn't the week before?
No, I just checked.
Okay, so I'll have to look at that one.
Eric, could you just tell us what the green notates in the,
That's just for the budget committee, so they can know when their meetings are. That just annotates budget committee meetings.
thank you.
Yep.
And could you add a line that says when the absentee ballots will be available? You said it out loud.
30 days ahead, yes, I
I
will
think it would be
add.
good if that date was there, because the public's
Agreed.
very interested in that date.
And listen, I'm just going to say this because I'm a little bit of a ADD type. I like the color coding. Like you did that one year where the whole thing was colored, so you knew when it was like a budget, select board,
You want me to
joint.
continue that?
Well, I like that because
Yeah,
then I
because
can just look at it and be like, oh, something's coming up. If I
like what you
know,
like, Dennis, so I'll make
well,
it
I mean, like deadlines, listen, I color code things all the time because then I can just look at it really quickly and then go. So I'm just saying,
I
thank
will
you for my,
continue the color
I may
code.
be a
And I'm going
simpleton.
to piggyback off of Sean. I would like to consider moving our Valentine's Day meeting.
I did notice that, and I noted it
I
specifically
know
because
you noted that.
I'm a cold-hearted guy.
That's all right.
You know,
You know,
not
some of
I would
us-
bring
everybody is.
chocolates for
Some of
everyone.
us have
Fine.
kids and
That's a
spouses,
florist
and
holiday,
people who are
right?
attending may also have conflicts.
Yeah.
They may not, but I just think if we could consider having it
Absolutely
the
right.
next day,
Yeah.
if no one would object,
And that-
on the
and the-
15th.
And
Absolutely.
the other one was the February 24th, is that correct? Yeah, okay, I'll look at
That
one
is
too, Sean.
correct.
Yeah. So I'll look at changing those two.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Yeah.
The
Thank you.
25th is not a meeting day. by
The
way.
25th is not a meeting
That's
day.
just a,
It's just, and so that could have its own color.
It does.
It
Thank
does,
you.
it's
That's a
red.
little red outline. I love it. Bless it.
and so basically what this
Hopefully he doesn't
is
go
also
colorblind.
telling us is that we are meeting every 2 weeks, pretty much from now on, except for December.
Mhm.
So I know we haven't set dates yet for beyond December, but I think this kind of sets our calendar for us. We're
It,
meeting
it
on the
looks you pretty
10th,
solid. Yeah, with apologies.
31st. et cetera. So
Are there any other questions about this budget timeline we'd like to finish out? We have 15 minutes to go and 10 minutes on the clock. So I just want to make sure we're all set. All righty. There's nothing that we need to approve for that. We just move on to the next item, which is 22-050. Consider Readfield Fairgrounds Workshop on November 1st. For 5 minutes, Eric, do you want to tell us about this?
Sure. So I did include a memo in the packet. The focus being on understanding current and future direction for the property. So I gave a bit of a summary there of what the property is. The document from 1996 does a much better job than what I've done, but I wanted to give a high-level review. We've run into some friction, I think, in a few different areas and a few different times. And I think it's time to reconsider where we are and look at this and try to avoid conflict wherever we can. And I think the best way to do that is to have open discussion about some of these things. It's been 25 years since we've really looked at this actively. I think COVID has really changed perspectives on recreation. I think that conservation remains a really strong priority for the town of Readfield. In fact, last budget cycle, we allocated $10,000 for a conservation land reserve fund, which we haven't done for decades, as far as I understand it. So we have a shared use property with, in some ways, maybe not conflicting, but competing interests and needs. And we need to have a discussion about that so we can move forward thoughtfully with what's becoming a more pressing agenda for recreation. And also from the perspective of conservation, I believe their desire to do more of that as well. So we have some things that we need to talk about. When discussing this with conservation and recreation representatives, it seemed as though this would be a good approach. I did talk to Dennis about it as well. He was there on one of our meetings. And so we asked for feedback from the committee chairs about their preferred approach. And we did get some good feedback that's included in the memo also. So my recommendation is that we have a workshop, something of a round robin format on November 1st, 6:30 to, I'd say maybe roughly 8:30, maybe 8, depending on how things go. But have components for all three committees to represent their views of where things would, where they'd like to see things be in the future. Time for the select board, who really would be directing this meeting, to hear those things, provide their own comments, but also time to hear from the public about what they are seeing as valuable use of the property. It's got a long history of doing a lot of things and a lot of things well. I think we want to continue that. So this is hopefully part of that ongoing success story.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So there is a workshop on November 1st. Any other questions about that?
I think it's a good idea. I don't see that we have any particular issues that people can't discuss openly with each other. I think all three, are they all boards? Maybe one's a commission, but all three groups that are involved, trails, conservation, and recreation, all have done.
And cemetery too, apparently, because I didn't even realize until I looked at the map
cemetery
that
is,
there's cemetery property there as well. It's fascinating. Yeah.
so we should invite them also to participate. We can all have a discussion, and I think it's a great time for each group to tell us what they've done and what their hopes are for the future. and a chance for the public to weigh in on what their hopes are. And we do have a pretty clear mandate from the last town meeting vote to spend money to develop in a particular manner. So I think it's a great idea to let everybody have a voice and all together at once.
I'm all for getting together and talking it out. And I think this is exactly not only what we need, but probably overdue. Ralph?
Question as to whether or not the cemetery actually owns property beyond its present metes and bounds to the south. I thought when I was reading through, the impression I got was that they're in a butter and some of that land might lend itself to future expansion, but they don't actually own that land now.
Both of those things are true. They're like I said, the cemetery does extend, I think it's a couple acres into, and again, it's like arbitrary parcel lines, right? It's all municipally owned property, the cemeteries and this. So we really ought to be having a discussion about it as a contiguous
So they
thing.
do actually have a footprint beyond
Absolutely.
They
the
do.
stone wall boundary.
They do. And you can actually see where the old lot line was, and then you have the expansion into what is considered the fairgrounds property proper. But again, the more I think about it, the more I think about this as being actually 60 acres of contiguous town property that includes X number of cemetery acres and plus all the other, those are generalizations, but yeah. But you're right, that this did consider the use of that property for expansion of the cemetery. And we want to consider that, I think, in this discussion as well, so.
Excellent. Any other questions about the workshop, which we are scheduling on November 1st? This doesn't need a motion, does it?
I have a suggestion.
Oh, hey, Bruce.
For the format, is this a good time to talk about that?
Absolutely, now or never.
Okay, I'm really excited about having this discussion because we really haven't got together on what we see for the future of the fairgrounds. And of course,
Agreed.
it's different perspectives. And I don't want to have any misunderstandings. And to help prevent that, I think it's good for each group to write down what their view is of the fairgrounds for the future.
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
Doesn't have to be an essay. It could be an outline, but just something so each party can see what the other party's thinking and without having any misunderstandings.
Absolutely. And I think that's, communication is important. And I think clear communication is going to really help us get through that meeting. So I would expect that from the Rec Committee. I would expect that from the Conservation Commission, and certainly from the other groups that are involved. Having something down in writing would be worthwhile. Ralph, go.
Do we need a third party to run this meeting?
No, we don't. That was something we mentioned, but I feel like we haven't even had a conversation yet to be moderated. It had been tossed around, and Eric asked me about that, and I just felt like we need to be able to get into a room and talk. I can't imagine that we'll need some outside person to help guide this conversation. But if we get to a point where we feel like our next meeting, or if we have to have another meeting and that needs to happen, I'm open to that.
Perfect.
Anything else?
It was very useful to have the fairgrounds document in there.
Yes.
So.
Right. The mimeographed copy.
So Dennis, I've heard you ask people to have something available. Do you want that submitted by a certain date or just bring it to the meeting?
No, I think it's just got to be a part of the meeting. That's our point, having the meeting, getting everybody on the same page. And I think that's going to be helpful.
So have an outline available to bring with you to the meeting.
Absolutely. Bruce, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I had a question. You mentioned the fairground document that you've been looking at. What document is that?
It is the Fairgrounds Management Plan from 1995.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought that might be where it is, but there's other documents too. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we're good for the meeting?
Absolutely. All right. November 1st. We'll see you there.
Can I make a motion to extend the meeting?
Yes,
10 minutes, 5 minutes?
5 minutes. Do 5
How about
minutes.
15?
15?
You don't have to use it.
Very
We
well.
had 10 minutes for this.
Go ahead, move it.
I make a motion, we extend this meeting 10 minutes.
Second, all in favor? Thank you very much.
60
Very well.
pages, guys, come on.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Does Eric
Very
have
well.
to be the reader of said pages?
No. But we are going to move on to item 22051, first reading of revised board, committee, and commission guide. We have 10 minutes allotted for this, but we want to go ahead and read that. Let's take a look.
Eric?
Sure, I will be brief on this one because I think that this is a good first draft. I think we approached this after considering a few things, one of which was the change due to COVID in how we meet. We had our chairs meeting for the first time in 2 years. We've been thinking about this for the last couple of months, and back probably 4 or 5 years ago, we did put together this original packet that was intended to help boards and committees become familiar with what their duties were, to offer some structure, to help with the public understanding of how this stuff worked, to make sure it was transparent, and to have a fair and equitable process for appointments, all of those things. Like I said, we've been thinking a lot about it the last couple of months, and so Catherine suggested that we take a look at this, and Ralph has suggested things about minutes. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do to improve and have a good public process. And some of our best assets and resources are these boards and committees. And this document helps establish direction from the select board to the committees appropriately in most cases. Sometimes it comes the other direction, but in most cases it is the select board leading this. And so this truly is a select board document that establishes norms, protocols, processes, and I think that it's, again, in a pretty good shape. The areas that I would look for continued review and work would be the appendix, or not, the table of contents I want to gut and start from scratch with, because it's tough, and we have some like run-on titles that I want to work on. But really, I think it's a good start, and I appreciate the work that everybody has done, Catherine especially, but also all the board and committee chairs who responded to this after our chairs committee meeting to give us some better information and better feedback. So that's my summary of this, and I'm excited that we're working on it and glad that we're within sight of a revised draft, because it just makes everything work better.
I would agree with that. I also think it's a really great asset to our town in terms of information. Right now, like for example, in the age-friendly committee, there's still minutes from 2015. When you click on it on the website. So the way that this sort of binder, this packet of information could be easily put out to the internet, we are always looking for people to volunteer, and it's difficult to say you should volunteer for this. We don't really have a lot of information available about who's on it or whatever, but it's a cool committee. I think putting this information out is again in line with our select board goals of communicating, making things more efficient, and especially with these valuable things, more consistent. And I think that's a wish. Sean?
I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
All I would say is the first thing that I hope we can address, the following minimum eligibility criteria must be met to serve, is U.S. citizenship. I think if we start to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and,
good call.
we talk about having people that are willing to be a part of their community, whether they are working on that status, whether they're a permanent resident. I think we need to open that up, because you all did that for me. And now look at me, I'm a citizen and I'm sitting in this room.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Agreed.
I think that
Is
would be
that in
great.
there?
What's that?
Is that in there?
No, but it needs to be.
Well, no, the restriction that you have to be a U.S.
Yeah,
citizen is in
That's
there.
what I'm asking.
Yes, that's
That is in.
I've read
Yep.
this multiple times and
The
I
number
didn't read
one,
it, so.
step one, U.S. Step one, U.S. citizenship.
Looks like I just said.
There is a workaround to that.
There is a workaround, Ralph, but
And
it's
you
not
don't
welcome.
necessarily have to be a citizen. But, and it's a step back from that, it's still limiting. But if you have a certain amount of taxable property on the grant list as of a certain fiscal year, then you're eligible.
Right.
Because then you're a stakeholder.
But that's not the point in this.
It lowers the bar in terms of eligibility.
I
Well,
thought
but
what
yeah.
we've been using is
Think about
Readfield
it. I don't,
resident.
it's just,
Yeah.
Oh, mine doesn't tell pages.
Okay.
So Ralph, that might be great. My point here is saying US citizenship. It doesn't matter if somebody owns property in town. If somebody looked at this as an immigrant or somebody new, a new Mainer, and they read that, they think, oh, I'm not eligible.
I think the
That number
basic
one
criteria is to be a Readfield resident.
Yeah, I would strike that number one. I don't think you have to be a citizen to be able to help out your
We
town.
do have a lot of renters.
Is there a time that you have to be a Readfield resident to say anything or just
Nope.
live in or
Have your
property owner or
address, I
whatever
think,
address
is yes,
is?
ma'am.
Just
Yep.
a resident
mailing
means you live
address
here.
or-
So page 144 for anybody who's following.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I don't have page numbers.
No, I'm taking notes
Read
here.
this 10 times over or what?
I haven't actually.
I need to
just
make
twice.
one correction that Rob Peel let me know. I did a cut and paste error in the Trails Committee. And in there it says age-friendly committee, so that needs to be revised to say Trails Committee. And I promised him I would say that. One thing that I looked at in here is that there were either 2 or 3 different places for us to approve this. So there were parts of things that were there were different policies that were put together to make this back in 2013 or 11. And my suggestion is let's take those out and let's approve the entire document. Let's make this a one thing so that we don't have to do parts and it would be less confusing.
I think that's a great suggestion. I'll make a note of that and work on
And
that.
I'm hopeful that as Ralph reads through this, he will decide if what we put in there for minutes is suitable for a minutes policy, so we don't have to make a separate one. And Eric had talked at one point about having an agendas policy, so I included that. So we don't need a separate policy if we can, make this say what we want it to say.
Agreed.
But we need to be really careful that one thing in here, when we do approve this, if we do it at our next meeting, when we have a second reading, is that we are all approving each of the charges of every board, commission, and committee. So we need to be certain that what it says there is what we, the select board, believe is the actual charge to those committees, to those groups, because it states in this policy that that is our responsibility. It doesn't state it in the right place. It's in the chair's responsibilities part.
I'll look at that too.
So maybe it needs to have an overall statement that the select board is the one who grants the charge to each board, committee, or commission, with the exception of those that are state appointed, but like a school board. Obviously, we don't authorize that.
But even some of those do, like the conservation it has state statute behind it, but it's still at the direction of the select board. So, but yeah,
Right.
there's always nuances, so I won't talk about that.
Right, but I think it's important to state those things. And so I don't know if we've done this before with our new members. So what we're having tonight is a first reading. And it's our responsibility for everybody to read this and look for anything that you're uncomfortable with or discrepancies or errors. And then we'll talk about it at our next meeting. And if those things are all resolved and we agree upon them, we can vote to approve it or not. Or we can push it out to a third reading if there's things we're still uncomfortable with. So that's the process.
One more from me. The select board may exclude from consideration any applicant with physical or mental disability, blah, blah, blah. I think what we want to read there is select board may exclude from consideration any applicant that cannot perform the duties of the appointment based on reasonable accommodation. Why are we highlighting just those people?
Yep,
That
agreed.
can't
Yeah,
get a
absolutely
reasonable
agree.
What
accommodation?
page is that on, Sean?
It's the very first paragraph.
Oh, he doesn't have pages.
It's the first paragraph again?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I think we should probably just be citing ADA.
well, I think we just need to say we will look at making
Yeah.
sure we abide by.
But this is
Laws.
this is the updating from 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's
absolutely,
perfect.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you
And
got to
that's
go
why
through
we
it.
need to do it.
Yep.
Thank you for your perspective on this stuff, Sean.
Go ahead.
You basically put this together with responses from the various boards and committees. So this is their take on what they want.
Yes,
Okay, because my point being, before we exercise our ultimate authority here, I would hope that we have buy-in from all the players so that we're not basically saying, you're going to do this and you may not be happy with it, but tough luck.
right.
Okay.
And
So,
17 of 19 chairs participated.
okay, so I'm assuming that those 17
It's amazing.
That's
Awesome.
have laid out what it is they want so that we won't have any problem saying, yeah, that's fine. I just don't want to say, this is what you're going to do, but you may not want to.
The sticking points for any of the committees, some were very just, okay, I'll do it. But agendas were not previously addressed.
Right.
The minutes were not previously addressed.
Again, yes.
And the attendance component was not previously addressed. But the attendance component is important because it's in an ordinance. And so we have to have that there. And some people still didn't include it. So I was planning over the next couple of weeks to get in touch with those people and say, hey, you know what, you really do have to put this in. I don't mind typing it in for you, but I
Plug
don't
it
want
in.
to change their document
Right.
because I'm taking what they gave me.
No, I think it was great. It reads kind of like an index, an indexing of the boards, committees, and commissions. Any further discussion on this? Very well. Do we need to approve this second reading? Is that
I think you might want to move it to a second reading, but I don't believe that takes a motion.
okay? Very well. I'm all set with this.
So we'll move it to a second reading
Move it to a
next
second
time.
reading next time. Yes, with the changes we talked about. Just, I would say.
And we can contact.
Do we need to make a
you,
motion?
Catherine, outboard of a meeting format to let you know what we're thinking about.
I don't think so.
You want a motion to adjourn, right?
I want a motion. to
Yes.
adjourn.
Oh,
Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Very well. Thank you very much.